there, welcome to episode 66 of Social Business Engine, the podcast that showcases thought leaders who represent modern business in action, getting results through the culture and technology of social media. I'm your host, Bernie Borges of Find and Convert. Thanks for listening today. On this episode, I'm excited to bring you Ian Cleary. Ian is the founder of Razor Social, a popular social media consulting and training company that he operates out of Dublin, Ireland. Ian is a popular speaker at marketing conferences in the US and Europe, and Ian is especially known for his expertise in social media tools. And on today's episode, we're going to tackle a controversial topic, and that is how to sell through social media. Ian, welcome back to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Thank you very much for having me back, Bernie. Delighted to be back.
Terrific. Well, I was looking at the previous episodes. March of 2014 is when you joined me for the first time, and that was fantastic, and I'm thrilled to have you back. And as I mentioned in the intro, we're going to tackle a controversial topic, how to sell through social media. But first, let me brag a little bit, not about me, but about you. I just want my audience to know, in case they don't know you, for the 2 or 3 people out there that may not know you. I've been watching your success, Ian, and it's really fun to watch because you have been really enjoying some nice success, and you're such a nice guy. I truly enjoy knowing you and consider you a friend. And so when I see that you have achieved status like top 10 social media blogs by Social Media Examiner 2 years in a row, 2013 and 2014, and you're a globe-trotting speaker where I have the pleasure of seeing you at marketing conferences like Social Media Marketing World and Content Marketing World, that is just a small part of who you are professionally. And I wanted to make sure that people really know about your credentials.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie. Very nice to say. I love meeting you on the circuit. It's great chatting here, but when you get out at the conferences, that's where I get a chance to actually really meet people, and I love meeting people. So it's great to catch up with like-minded people in person. So hopefully we'll meet again soon.
Absolutely.
Well, Content Marketing World, I'm sure we'll meet at that in September.
Yeah, we'll see each other in September for sure. Well, Ian, you say on your website, Razor Social, you say that you are not about strategy. You're about tools and technology.
Yeah. I mean, I say that. Of course, there's an element of strategy to tools, but it's just I don't do all the strategic stuff. My background is technology, and technology is what I really like.
Right. But you recently wrote a blog post, which, of course, I will link up in our show notes. And I wanted to know what inspired you to write about this topic of how to generate social media sales, because it is kind of controversial. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just the stage people are at, particularly in social media side of things. They're going, well, we've done all the engagement, and now we actually have to show that we're generating revenue from social media, and more revenue should come from that. And there's plenty of opportunities to make money from engaging with people through social media channels. And it's just having that process in place. It's not necessarily on the social media channels, although there are some tools available to do that. Most of the sales will happen off the channels, but still there's plenty of opportunity to get people from social media channels through to your website and buying your products and services.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about the points that you make in that blog post. And I kind of want to frame it up in the context of what, is most of my listening audience. And that's people who are in a corporate or enterprise environment. Surely there's people out there that, of course, might be in a small business or solopreneurs, and they have a product to sell, and maybe it's even a downloadable product. But I want to kind of make sure that we really address it in the context of all those possibilities with some emphasis on the people in a corporate setting. And one of the first points that you make in your article is the importance of building email subscribers. You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the best routes for sales through social media, now there's other ones we'll talk about, but one of the best is going from bringing a fan or a follower on as an email subscriber. Then they go through your sales funnel, through all your steps, and that could be through an email marketing tool, or it could be a marketing automation tool like Marketo or Infusionsoft. But they're going, you've kicked off the relationship with them through Twitter and Facebook, and they may have engaged with you and they're interested in your content, interested enough to become a fan, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, then you need to take that to the next level. And typically that's not on Facebook and saying, buy my product, or on Twitter, buy my product. It's going, well, here's something interesting on the website. So you get to the website and then somebody has a downloadable white paper, or they've, a report that they make available. People sign up as an email subscriber. Now they've taken the next step. So you've a much stronger chance of generating that sale because they've committed to getting emails off you at this stage on a regular basis. With Facebook, if you become a fan on Facebook, there's a very low level of commitment at that stage, and most of the times they still won't see your content. But if you get into somebody's email box and you're getting regular emails off them, you have a chance of building that relationships and going through, a lead nurturing process through your automation tools to eventually develop that into a sale. So I think it's a great stepping stone from starting in social, building the engagement, make sure they like you, that they appreciate the content you provide, and then bring them to your website. And I say email because, the majority of people come to your website will leave and not come back again. So you need to capture their details somehow. And I think one of the best ways of doing that is email. So email is one great way of doing it. And the other is, if people don't give you your email address, to remarket to them. So follow them around the web and encourage them to come back to the website.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit too, because remarketing, retargeting, there's a lot of content out there that's describing what that is and how to do that. So do you want to elaborate on what you mean by that?
Okay, say for example, you want to target people on Facebook. So people come to your website, and on Facebook, you build a custom audience. So Facebook gives you a little piece of code that you put onto your website. When somebody is a visitor to your website, that list is growing all the time. And that's a list of people then you can target on your website. Now, you can even refine it further because you can target people from different parts of your website. So they may be visiting certain category of blog posts, and you can target people differently. But if people are leaving your website, you do want to bring them back. If they haven't subscribed as an email subscriber, then you want to target them with advertisements to bring them back. So that, they've read a really good blog post you've done about, productivity tips for management, your management team. Then they leave. They haven't given your email address. So then you target them with an ad on Facebook or somewhere on the web. And it's about, a downloadable guide for productivity tips, essential productivity tips. Mm-hmm. Now you get their email address, and now you have them into your funnel. So it's important to target them, try and get the email address. And if you don't, then, consider following them depending on where they go on your website.
Have you experimented with advertising on Twitter?
I did a few months ago. I found it quite expensive at the time, so I haven't done enough advertising on that. It was working out too expensive for me at the time.
Yeah, actually, I have an example that I'd like to share that I think is really relevant to what this whole topic that we're discussing here. So one of our clients at Find and Convert is it's a B2B company, in the biosciences industry, and they have an annual trade show. They actually have quite a few trade shows, but kind of really one big one. That's their annual big event. So we did some targeted advertising on Twitter to people that have attended that event in the past, and we did that by flagging different ways that they've referenced that conference. So by finding reference to that conference, we were able to identify people on Twitter that might be at that conference, because it is a big conference, and then we did some promoted tweets to them, and then drove them to a landing page on our client's website about our client's planned activity at that conference.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it is, it's not selling direct, right? But why is our client at this conference? To generate leads, right? Yeah. So I think it's an example of using social media, in this case Twitter, to impact sales. Back to your opening statement, everybody's under pressure to produce results in everything that they're doing, including social media.
Yeah, I mean, to me, social media is a way to help fill up your funnel, the same as your website visitors. So you just need to go, well, it is important. And yes, there's a lot of added value in terms of brand awareness and building relationships, using tools like Tracker or Littlebird to actually identify influencers and build relationships. That's super valuable, and it may not lead to immediate revenue, but that's one way of going down that route and generating revenue through getting more exposure with the influencers. But the other side then is going, can you actually bring them in as part of being an email subscriber and then put them through that funnel at that side of things?
Right. Yeah, there's the whole multi-touch attribution thing where, if one of the touches is through a social media engagement and then that person does wind up in your database and you wind up nurturing them and bringing them into a sales process, a sales conversation, then the fact that there was some engagement in social media lends support to the fact that social media was a contributor to the sales process.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Ian, you also talk about running competitions. So what's that about?
Well, it depends what platform you're on, but the competitions, say, for example, it could be a competition or it could be research you're doing. We talked about research before the show, Bernie. Say, for example, you wanted to research your audience. So you want to find out, your Facebook fans, for example, who they are, what organization they're from. You may do research and there may be a competition part to it. By answering a few questions, you build up a profile of your audience and they get something valuable at the end of it. Mm-hmm. Now, to get something valuable at the end of it, again, it might be a route to get them to subscribe by email to get that valuable thing at the end, So there are ways to run competitions across different platforms, across Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, to actually, again, build your email subscribers or figure out more about your target audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, when I opened up here, I said that this is a controversial topic, and I'm going to pour some fuel on the fire here, Ian, and talk about something that is very controversial. And kudos to you for having the guts to actually include it in this blog post. And that is, drum roll please, auto DMing people on Twitter. Whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's funny is because if somebody, or I follow somebody and then they follow me back and send me an auto DM, a lot of times that's really spammy, and it's not personal, it's not anything. But what I found is that I have done some auto DMs, but I'm very selective in that I would run advanced filters to identify the most relevant people, and then I would send a relevant message to them. So, I was running a webinar recently and I was looking for people that were interesting, that were marketing people, and it was a blogging webinar. And I reached out groups of maybe about 100 people, and it was personalized. So it did say, "Hi, Bernie, I thought you might be interested in this webinar." Well, what was interesting is I got no negative responses, and a lot of the responses I got back were, "Thanks, I signed up, Ian." So a lot of people signed up, and also people interacted with me and said, "Hey, Ian, I can't go. How are things going?" It was an excuse to have a conversation, so it generated more conversation with Twitter followers. It got more people signed up to the webinar. I used a tool called Social Bro for doing that, for identifying the people. Now, actually, there's a tool called Insight Pool, and I really like what Insight Pool do, because they do a lot of targeting of people across different channels, and they do social drip campaigns on social media, so automated messages. But the way it's handled and the personalization and the very relevant targeting, it works really well. So you have to be careful of it. It's not just blasting out to everybody, and it's not just saying, hey, join my email list. It's providing something of value and interest to a targeted group, showing that you have spent time picking out that target group and then sending them a DM, and that does work for me.
So the two main takeaways that I'm hearing from this strategy of DMing people is, number one, personalize it. So it's, hey, Bernie, we've got this new free guide that might help you become more productive. And not only personalizing it and using my name, but making it relevant to me based on some kind of filtering criteria. Yeah,
exactly. I know what, I'm looking and going, well, these are marketing people that it was marketing within their titles and stuff, and they were within a particular country, for example, and so it was ultra targeted, and then it was personalized as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then you're offering something of value, so it's not a, please follow my Facebook account. It's, here's something I thought was going to be interesting.
Right. So how do you feel then, if you stay with that strategy of personalizing it and making it very relevant, how do you feel about that coming from a brand? I mean, your example, it came from you. How do you feel about that coming from a brand?
Well, if a brand says, hey, Ian, here's a valuable free guide I thought you might be interested in with a link, I'm probably going to click on the link. That's what I click on the link and see, is it interesting? If I click on the link and it's not interesting at all and it's not relevant to me, then I'll go, well, I don't appreciate the DM.
Right.
But if it's something relevant and useful, I'll go to it and then go, well, maybe I'll sign up. So it has to be relevant. So don't disappoint the person when they click on the link. Make sure it's very relevant to them. Now, when we talk about audit DMs, like on LinkedIn, you can email your contacts on LinkedIn, and you can email them 50 people at a time. Now, that's good from a LinkedIn perspective because you might have thousands of contacts and you don't want to spam people. But similarly on LinkedIn, if you tag people correctly on LinkedIn, then you can filter based on the tag, and then you can send an email to 50 people and say, this is not a personalized one saying, hi, Ian, because you can't do that to 50 people at a time.
Right.
But what I can do is go, hey, I picked out this group particularly because you're marketing people, and I thought you may be interested in this because it's specific to marketing. I hope you don't mind. Thanks very much, Ian. And if they know it's a limited group that it was sent to, the 50 people, and it was specifically targeted at marketing people, and the offer is relevant, well, then the response is good as well from that.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent example because you point out one of the things you can't do in LinkedIn. I've always wondered if they're ever going to change this, but you can't personalize. You can't do hi, open bracket, first name, close bracket, and then auto-populate it with first name. But you can, I love your example, by tagging people and then selecting people from a tag group and then making it relevant to that group. That's a fantastic example. But actually, I'm going to come back to the DM example for just a moment on Twitter because you reminded me of something that one of my previous guests on the podcast talked about, Dan Gingiss from Discover Card. And that whole podcast episode was about creating a great customer experience. And one of the things that Discover Card does on Twitter is that they structure their tweets to have enough space to leave the name of the person who's actually doing the tweeting behind the brand. So I can see a DM coming in from a brand if it's personalized and relevant and has the name of the person that sent it. I would respond favorably to that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So you might have just the initials maybe of the person at the end, or the name. But yeah, absolutely, I think so. Yeah, because like I say, if it's from Discover and it's actually Bernie's at the very end of it, you go, that's a person within that brand. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It wasn't a robot. It wasn't, it was a real person. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about selling direct. And I realize that this is mostly a business to consumer kind of a topic. So if you're B2B, hang with us, because I think there's still some ways that you can think about this and reframe it for B2B. But, you talk in your post, and again, I'm going to have a link to this in our show notes, but you talk about selling directly on the social media channels. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, first of all, I think that, all these social media channels will move to being able to people sell products and services on all the channels. I do think on Facebook, Twitter, and you see Pinterest and Instagram are all starting to move towards having buy buttons. Mm-hmm. So I can see these buy buttons happening, but it's more likely to be lower value transactions. Nobody is really going to spend, $1,000 a month on a Marketo product with a buy button in Facebook. That's not going to happen. But they may initiate a transaction for a low value white paper that brings people into the funnel and qualifies people. And then, they might go up a level at that stage. Mm-hmm. So depending on the channel, a lot of the channels don't have the facility yet. Like LinkedIn, there's no facility there to sell products directly on LinkedIn. I know on Facebook, there's a few different options. I mean, people have built lots of different apps and put shops and all sorts of things on Facebook. And most providers found it difficult to sell. And a lot of people closed down the shops. There's some that are successful, but most of the shops weren't successful. I know there's a tool called HeoCart, and HeoCart has the facility where on a post on your newsfeed, if you say, hey, I've got this great white paper for $9 or $20, if you want to buy it, just in your comment, put the word buy. And what that does is when they put the word buy, then an automatic comment comes back immediately saying, here's the link. You click on the link and then you go off and buy it and you get the product. Now, next time, if another product comes up, another white paper comes up, you can click on buy and then it's automatically, your details are recorded automatically, so you don't have to go through that buy process, but that's a way so I think that, that product is selling well, but I do think that Facebook will bring out that buy button. I mean, especially for lower cost things, like for example, you want to buy a business book. Why can't you buy a business book when somebody shares saying, oh, here's my favorite book, and people then can just buy it within Facebook, or buy a white paper, or depending on your audience, maybe somebody would buy $50 or $100. But that can be very useful for companies, because if people commit to even a smaller amount, they've handed over their credit cards, they've shown that they're really interested in certain product you have, and now it's a good chance to bring them along that path to the higher, more expensive product.
Yeah, and I like the example that you gave at the beginning of this topic where you referenced a B2B example where Marketo and, if in our case at Find and Convert, we're HubSpot partners. So if a HubSpot link was to an ebook that was, $9.95 or $19.95 because it's got so much relevant, valuable content, it's for sale. It's not free. Well, most people can put that on a credit card in a B2B environment. And while the HubSpots and the Marketos of the world are not in business to sell an ebook and drive their top line or bottom line that way, it is a way to generate new contacts, new leads that can then be nurtured for long-term relationship and sales process purposes.
Yeah, and you do strip out a lot of people that would only look for the free version. So somebody had to take out the credit card and pay for that. So they've started giving you money. So now they're a customer, even if it's a very low value amount, but it's a stepping stone to the higher value.
Yeah. Ian, I want to talk about one more topic before we get to my one thing question. And so let's cover it kind of quickly because I'm watching our clock here. You talk about forming strategic partnerships, and that really resonates with me. So what do you mean by that in the context of selling through social media?
Well, I mean, if there's other people within your industry that are targeting the same people but are not a competitor, so they're not a direct competitor but they're targeting the same people, well, why don't you partner with these people and try and get some of their audience onto your lists? So for example, you have a Facebook page and you have 10,000 people on it and it's a corporate audience. Somebody else is in the corporate market with the exact same audience they're targeting, but a completely different product. Mm-hmm. Maybe there should be some cross promotion between both of them. And that's a way of getting a lot of people from their list onto yours and your list onto theirs. And that can be a quick way of building your list. So I think it's important to look at what are the potential partners across these different platforms. Or maybe it's a platform that you are not active on. So, you may be more active on one platform more than another, and you may reach out to other companies that have a very strong presence on a platform, and you don't want to invest all the time in building, your audience on that platform. So there could be relationships there that could benefit both parties.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, actually, you just reminded me, I'm going to put a plug in for something that I'm going to give a little more detail on in just a moment, and that is a little partnership that you and I have going in this podcast episode where we at Social Business Engine are going to be giving away, not selling, but giving away an awesome ebook that you have authored, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. So stay tuned for that, listeners. But first, let's get to my one thing question, Ian. And I always have a lot of fun with this question. I know my listeners do. I get great feedback on it. And this is where I ask you, Ian, if there's any one thing that you could change about the way that business is conducted today, what would that be?
Well, that's a really interesting question, Bernie. So one thing that I change how business is conducted, I mean, the one thing that frustrates me on the social media side of things is that a lot of businesses are on social media and not sure why they're on particular channels. So I'd love to change that so businesses go, well, I'm never going to get onto any of these platforms unless I'm clear of the specific outcomes as a result of investing all the time and effort in these platforms. So that's one thing I'd definitely change is so people would evaluate that before they go on. So don't be wasting their time on all these platforms. And so many things, everybody's online now and spending so much time on these channels, and they're a real time drain. So I think how business conducted that way, I think more evaluation of what platform we should be on and why we're there.
Yeah. So strategy. Yeah. You say you're not about strategy. That sounds like strategy to me.
That's the only strategy one. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe it is.
Well, unfortunately, I've seen that with our own clients as well. So I hear you on that. And that's a great point. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this awesome ebook that we are going to be giving away here. The title of it is Blog Post Titles Guaranteed to Drive More Traffic. And we are going to make that available at socialbusinessengine.com/Ian, spelled E-I-N. So, Ian, what's that ebook all about?
Well, first of all, it's I-A-N.
What did I say?
E-A-N, I think.
Okay, well, I'm not going to edit that out. You just fixed it for me. Awesome. I-A-N.
So the ebook is just about, the title you use within your blog post. It's so important to actually get that right because the title can be more important than the content itself. Because if you see on some of the channels and the social media channels, what people see, first of all, is the title. Mm-hmm. If the title is not enticing and interesting enough, nobody's even going to click on it to come and visit your blog post. So you need to get that right. So we talk about a couple of tools and a couple of different ways of how you would create that awesome title that's going to generate you more traffic just by having a much better title of your post. It's one you should really spend time on, picking that title, and the ebook will help.
Fantastic. So once again, that's going to be available at socialbusinessengine.com/Ian, spelled IAN. Fantastic. Thank you, Ian. And where can people learn more about you?
Well, the best place, I suppose, is razorsocial.com. You'll find me there, or on Twitter at Ian Cleary, or connect me on LinkedIn. If you search Ian Cleary, you'll probably find me there as well at the top.
Terrific. And all those links will, of course, be in our show notes. And so, Ian, thank you so much for coming back on the Social Business Engine podcast. As always, it is a pleasure. You are full of wisdom and insights and just fun to talk with.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Bernie. And the feeling is mutual. So I love it talking to you as well. And I'm so looking forward to meeting up again in content marketing world.
Terrific. Well, before we sign off here, I just want to remind everyone to visit us at socialbusinessengine.com, where you'll find our podcasts and our video channel. And if you've listened to this podcast before and you like it, would you give us a review in iTunes? We've made that easy. Just go to socialbusinessengine.com/iTunes with a link directly to this podcast. And I would really appreciate that. Hey, until next time, this is Bernie Borges of Find and Convert, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.